Okay, so today let's start in child's pose. And as you start in child's pose, you know there are a lot of options. So keep the hips up high if the knees are bothering you. If the lower back is bothering you, you could bring the knees and the feet all the way together and then rest the chest down and the forehead down. And that just brings a little bit more support to the lower back. You can see if that works. If child's pose is bothering you, no matter what you do with the legs in the lower back, then you can just come forward onto your stomach and rest the head on top of the hand. So this is always a good alternative to child's pose. You still get that benefit of the pressure point in the forehead being touched and calming down. But if child's pose works or some version of it, stay there. We're trying to open up the upper body a little bit and starting to land on our mat. Either eyes softly open, so you're not opening them all the way or just opening them part of the way. Or you could do eyes closed if that feels like it's more calming and centering. Take a deeper breath in through the nose. Back out through the nose. 2 more like that. Deep breath in. Slow breath out. Big breath in through the nose. As long as you can, exhale back out through the nose. Keep going on your own. As you lengthen the inhale and the exhale, try to make them even in length. So you might be able to hear your breath a little easier with this pose, with child's pose. So you can use that to measure. And the reason why we're trying to make them even is that's what helps regulate the nervous system, brings us into a more balanced state of mind. So we get clarity from our physical practice. We'll start to come up onto hands and knees. So wherever you are, come up to tabletop, all fours. And let's start to get into the shoulders a little bit. So reach that left arm all the way up. Thread this left arm through underneath you, coming down onto the side of the head, just resting it on the mat. Right hand stays right where it is. And as you reach those left fingertips away from you, you can roll back toward the ear rather than the nose. You could stay right here, or you could start to stretch that right arm forward over the top of the mat. See how that feels on the shoulders. And the head will naturally come down a little bit onto the mat. That's fine. And you could stay here, or you could reach that right arm up, turn the palm to face behind you, and wrap the right arm behind the back. So that right shoulder is moving away from the ear, and you're opening up the right side chest at the same time as you're opening the left shoulder, just in different directions. And at any time, you can bring the right hand back down in front of the face. And if you feel like the belly is pushing down toward the mat, hug it in a little bit to keep that support in the lower back. If the right arm's behind the back in the half bind, reach the right arm all the way back up. We'll all bring the right hand down in front of the face if it's not there already. Press into the right hand, reach the left arm all the way up. See if you got any more space in that left shoulder. Then bring the left hand down to the mat. Right arm reaches up. Thread the right arm through underneath you, coming down onto the side of the head, resting the shoulder down to the mat. And if the head doesn't come all the way down, you can always use something to bridge that gap. So a blanket, pillow, block, whatever you have. Left arm can start to reach forward toward the top of the mat. Stay here and feel the difference in the shoulder opening on the left side as you stretch that left arm forward. This feels good and right where you should be, then stay there. Otherwise, you can reach the left arm up, turn the left palm to face behind you, wrap the left arm behind the back, keep moving that left shoulder away from the ear. So there's plenty of space for the neck in the pose. Open up the left side chest, shoulder area, hug the belly in a little bit. Breathe into this. Left arm reaches back up to the sky. We'll all bring the left hand back down in front of the face. Press into the left hand. Reach that right arm up. Open up the right side chest. And right hand comes back down to the mat. You're back in tabletop. Let's bring the forearms down to the mat. So forearms are down onto the mat. Stack the shoulders right over the wrists. And then press down into the palms of the hands, spreading the fingers. Make sure the index fingers are pointing straight forward. They can even turn out a little bit. You just don't want them pointing in. That changes the position of the wrists. And we want those wrists to be in a safe place as we put weight onto the forearms. So as you press down into the hands and the forearms, reach the chest forward, hug the belly in a little bit, step the right foot back behind you. So notice how low that right hip is. Hug that outer right hip in toward the midline. Make sure the inner thigh is working. And the core should be on right here. Keep pressing down into the forearms and the hands. Can you step the left foot back without moving the hips? So maybe they'll move a little bit, but keep those hips really level. Chest reaches forward. So a lot of times we find ways to make this easier. So you want to keep the back pretty flat, the hips low, but not too low, just so they're not lifting up toward the sky. And that'll help you get a little bit more length in the legs. And then find your breath, inhaling in through the nose, back out through the nose. Set the hips down onto the mat. Keep the shoulders right over the elbows. Tops of the feet come to the mat. You press down into the tops of the feet hip width, distance apart, Sphinx pose. So you reach the chest forward and up. Belly's still hugging away from the mat and the tailbone's pointing back toward the heels. So it's like the chest is moving forward between the arms. Gaze is down the bridge of the nose, so the back of the neck is long. So coming into our first back bend, finding the breath here, opening up the spine. Then look back down at the mat, tuck the toes underneath you, fire up the legs, hug the belly in, and then lift the hips. That's the only thing that really needs to move here. And then one knee at a time, bring the knees down underneath the hips. Walk the elbows forward ahead of the shoulders and bring the forehead down to the mat. So Anahatasana or puppy dog pose. And this is a nice opening across the upper body. So we heated it up a little bit, coming into another back bend. Belly's definitely hugging in. So you don't want to feel any dipping in the lower back or any sway in the lower back. And you can keep walking the elbows forward if you want. Other option, you could bring the hands together like prayer and bring the hands back behind the head. If that's going well, the elbows might want to walk forward a little bit more. So you feel really long from the waist all the way up through those elbows. If you have the hands back behind the head, rest the hands back down onto the mat. You can separate them back to shoulder width distance. Lift the head up. Walk the elbows back so they're back underneath the shoulders again. Make sure the index fingers are pointing forward or a little bit out. Reach the chest forward. Shoulders are back away from the ears. And then step the right foot back. Fire up that right leg. So you feel the whole right side of the body completely on and engaged. Left foot steps back, hips are level. You're reaching the chest forward, hugging the belly in. You could stay right here. You could play with hovering the right toes away from the mat. barely away from the mat. You could even bring the right knee up toward the right tricep. That's a whole lot of work. Right leg goes back, bring the toes down. Maybe you hover the left toes away from the mat. Maybe the left knee to the right tricep, still looking forward, back to center. One more time each side, only if you want. Don't feel like you have to do it. Our challenges are all going to be in a different place with our body. Moving on to the left side if you're doing that. And you just want to find where your challenge is. One hand at a time, plank pose, down dog. So down dog is a nice opening for the upper body. Maybe you're feeling it here after that work. The shoulders are going back toward the hips, so the up and back, way behind the wrists. You can focus on the legs here, pedaling out the feet, but just make sure that you're pressing into all 10 fingertips and around the palm of the hand. So it's like the center of the palms lifting up because you're pressing down through the ring around the palm of the hand so much. All right, let's step the right foot through up between the hands. We'll get off the arms. Set the back knee down. Tuck those back toes, dig into the right heel, reach the arms all the way up. Low lunge. Bend the left elbow and then grab that left elbow with the right hand, lift the chest and bring everything over to the right. So getting into the side body, left side body. Keep opening the chest forward so the shoulder blades stay even across the upper back. Come back through to center, reach the arms all the way up. Bring the hands together right down in front of the heart. So bring some pressure into the hands so you keep the chest open and the elbows wide. And then open the chest to the right. Just keep the head right over the hips. We're not going to lean forward. You're just finding a twist up through the crown of the head. Come back through to center, hands come down to the mat, maybe fingertips. Back toes are tucked, lift the back knee, and then straighten the front leg. And maybe it's not all the way straight, especially if the legs are tight. You can have a bend in that right knee. Just let the head and the neck go. You're high on the ball, the back foot. Modified pyramid pose, keeping it gentle. We haven't done any opening of the backside of the leg yet, so take it easy there. Can be a tight part of the body. Then inhale forward to your lunge, back to downward facing dog. Bring the hands down, step the right foot back. Feet hip width distance apart. Push those shoulders way back. Hug the belly in, hug the lowest front ribs in. So finding that upper body opening in our downward facing dog. Other side, left foot steps up between the hands, set the back knee down, dig into that left heel, reach the arms all the way up. Bend that right elbow, reach for the right elbow, lift the chest first, and then bring everything over to the left. Get into the right side body and the shoulder at the same time. Back through to center, reach the arms all the way up. Hands come together right down in front of the heart. Press into the hands to keep that width across the chest. Open the chest to the left. Head stays right over the hips. So just get as tall as you can in this twist. Left knee still pointing straight forward. Start to bring it back to center, fingertips down to the mat, right underneath the shoulders. Lift that back knee, straighten the front leg. Find where your stretch is on the back side of the left leg here. Modified pyramid, let the head and the neck go. Stay high on the ball of the back foot. Inhale forward to your lunge, plant the hands, step back, downward facing dog. From downward facing dog, lift the right leg up and back. Look forward, step the right foot outside of the right hand. So a wide lunge. And as you come into your wide lunge, reach the heart forward, toes point forward on that right foot. Back knee stays lifted, although if it's too intense for the hip, you can always bring that left knee down. So it's either an active lizard with the left knee up and you're reaching the heart forward, keeping the rounding out of the upper back, or you can bring that back knee down. You're still getting a nice hip opening either way. Step it back, downward facing dog. Other side, left leg reaches up and back, look forward, step the left foot outside of the left hand, toes point forward, find your wide lunge here, lizard, reach the heart forward, right heel stretches back behind you, option to bring that back knee down whenever you want. Step back, downward facing dog. Then bend the knees, look forward, walk the feet up to the hands, take several steps to get there. Coming into a forward fold at the top of the mat. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. 2 more like that. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. Last one. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. This time, let's come all the way up. Circle the arms all the way up to standing. Bring the hands together overhead and back down in front of the heart. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, forward fold all the way back down. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. Come all the way back up on your inhale, circling the arms, bringing the hands together overhead, down in front of the heart. Moving meditation, half Surya A. Follow your breath. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, forward fold, hinging from the hips. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. Inhale, circle the arms all the way up to standing. Hands come together, down in front of the heart. The feet are pressing down into the mat like you're trying to separate the mat and spread it apart. And then you root down through the inner edges of the feet. Inhale, reach the arms all the way up. Exhale, forward fold, feeling that strength in the legs as you come down. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. Circle the arms all the way up to standing. Hands come together at the top, down in front of the heart. One more cycle. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. Inhale, circle the arms all the way up to standing. Hands come together at the very top, down in front of the heart. Full cycle, little different. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold, bend the knees, hands down to the mat, step back to plank pose. Hold plank pose, pull those legs back, reach the heart forward. Knees can always come down, especially if you want to cut the weight on the upper body. One forearm at a time, forearm plank. Press down into the forearms and the hands, keep reaching the chest forward and pulling the legs back. Core is definitely hugging in, but think about reaching the navel up toward the sternum to keep that length going up through the chest, and gaze can even go forward a little bit. Slowly set the hips down, tops of the feet down, Sphinx pose. So as you press into the tops of the feet, you push the chest forward, tailbone goes back at the same time to keep that length in the lower back. Belly's definitely lifted away from the mat. Then tuck the toes underneath you, fire up the legs. So the thighs will lift when you fire up the legs, outer hips hugging in toward the center. Look down, hug the belly in, and then just lift the hips. You're back in forearm plank. One hand at a time, plank pose, down dog. Find the stretch in the upper body. Keep hugging the lowest front ribs in. So you keep the lower back long, hugging the belly in. Then bend the knees, look forward, step, walk, bring the feet up between the hands. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. Circle the arms all the way up to standing. Hands come together down in front of the heart. Inhale, reaching the arms up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, bend the knees, hands down to the mat. Step back to plank pose. Find your plank pose. Legs, core, chest reaching forward, everything working together. One forearm at a time, forearm plank. Keep that firmness going out through the going throughout the whole body, finding one long line of energy. Navel to sternum, heart reaching forward. Start to set the hips down onto the mat, tops of the feet to the mat, belly in. Reach the chest up, and it's like those bottom tips of the shoulder blades are pushing the chest forward as you widen across the chest. Tailbone back, belly in. Then look down at the mat, tuck the toes, fire up the legs, lifting the thighs, hug the belly in, and then just lift the hips. Everything else is lifted. One hand at a time, plank pose, downward facing dog. Hips go up and back. Right foot steps up between the hands. Left heel down flat, warrior two. So heel to arch or heel to heel. Use that left arm to bring you all the way up. Spread the arms out wide. And then it's like you're pressing down with the palms of the hands to release the shoulders. Sometimes when we have the arms this way, the shoulders work really hard to keep the arms up, and we want those arm muscles to work. So think about the arm muscles wrapping around the bones of the arms for support. Really the whole body, but since we're focusing on the upper body, try that. Backhand in line with the shoulder, gaze is straight forward. Put some weight into that back leg so it's not all going into the front leg, and then see if you can press the top of the left thigh back a little bit more to keep that leg really straight. Straighten the front leg, flip that front palm up, reverse triangle. So reaching up and back. Bring the hands to the hips, turn those right toes in to face the side of the mat. With the hands on the hips, bring the heels in and the toes out just a little bit, no more than halfway. Reach the arms forward, palms facing up. So press down into the legs, lift up through the crown of the head, but try not to take the shoulders with you. And then bring the right arm on top of the left arm. Finding eagle arms. So you could grab the shoulders, you could bring the backs of the forearms together. Some of you might be comfortable bringing the left fingertips inside of the right hand. And then from here, keeping the chest lifted, the belly lifted, start to bend the knees, coming into a wide-legged squat, trying to keep the elbows in line with the shoulders. Belly lifts, tail lengthens. Straighten the legs, keep the eagle arms. Once the legs are completely straight, bring the hands to the hips. Point the toes straight forward so the heels kick out a little bit, and then bend down halfway. One hand at a time comes down to the mat in front of you. And then you'll just fold forward. So a wide-legged forward fold. You could walk the hands back so the fingertips are in line with the toe tips. Maybe the head touches down onto the mat. We're all moving the shoulders away from the ears. Belly hugs in. And the weight's even between the balls of the feet and the heels of the feet. So there's a tendency to rock back onto the heels. If the heels are heavier, the hips are too far back. And then you're losing that stretch in the back sides of the legs. Lift the head, walk the hands forward underneath the shoulders, coming up halfway. Turn the toes to the top of the mat, feet hip width distance apart. Left hand down underneath the left shoulder. Reach the right arm up, just coming into a simple twist with our lunge. Left shoulder away from the ear, hug that belly in, open up across the chest. Right hand comes back down to the mat. Step back to downward facing dog. Inhale forward to plank pose. One forearm at a time, forearm plank. Get long as long as you can in your forearm plank, and then slowly set the hips down, tops of the feet down, Sphinx pose. Shoulders away from the ears, look down the bridge of the nose. Each one of these should be feeling like you're getting more and more space. Start to look down, tuck the toes, fire up the legs, lifting the thighs, hug the belly in, and then lift the hips. Last to lift. One hand at a time, plank pose, downward facing dog. Left foot steps up between the hands, warrior two. Take your time. And then once you come to warrior two, try to get the weight even in both legs so it's not all going into the front leg. Push that right thigh back, so the top of the right thigh back, and then lengthen the left inner thigh forward. And then try hugging the arms in toward the shoulders and see if that helps you release the shoulders so you're not using them so much to lift up the arms. Chest is still reaching up toward the sky, but the hips are going down toward the mat. So you can get as long as you possibly can from the hips to the underarm. One long line. Find your breath in and out through the nose, up and down the back of the throat. Straighten the front leg, flip that front palm up, reverse triangle. Hands come to the hips, turn the left toes in to face the side of the mat. And then we'll do heels in, toes slightly out so that the knees and the toes follow one another. Reach the arms forward, palms facing up, left arm on top of right arm. Find your version of eagle arms on this side, and then press down into the legs. Keep the elbows in line with the shoulders, shoulders away from the ears. Left fingertips pointing straight up if you have full Garudasana arms, and then start to bend the knees coming into your wide-legged squat, lifting the belly, lengthening the tail at the same time. Try not to move the eyes. Maybe focusing on something between the forearms if there's a gap there. Start to press yourself back up to standing. Once you get there, hands to the hips, turn the toes to point forward, bend down halfway, one hand at a time underneath the shoulders, and then fold over the legs. So you hug the belly in to fold over the legs a little deeper. Hands can walk back, maybe fingertips in line with the toe tips, Maybe the head rests down on the mat. It's not a goal. If it touches, great. If it doesn't, it's not a big deal. Shoulders definitely away from the ears. Prasarita Padottanasana A. So this is an inversion, heads below the heart. Start to lift the head, walk the hands forward, coming up onto the fingertips right underneath the shoulders, and then turn the toes to the top of the mat. Find a runner's lunge, feet hip width distance apart, right hand underneath the right shoulder, left arm reaches up, finding that twist, which should feel really nice up the length of the spine as you press out through that right heel. So you're keeping the top of the right thigh lifted. Right shoulder away from the ear. Left hand comes down to the mat, step back, downward facing dog. Stay here or glide forward to plank pose. Find your plank pose, feet hip width distance apart, squeeze those legs. So it's like you're lifting the quads up to lift the kneecaps. And then one forearm at a time, forearm plank. Find the same strength here and the length. So looking forward helps. And then set the hips down onto the mat, tops of the feet to the mat, reach the chest forward. This is your back bend, Sphinx pose. Back of the neck stays long because you're looking down the bridge of the nose. Legs are strong, try not to relax them. Then looking down at the mat, tuck the toes underneath you, fire up the legs, the core, then lift the hips up. Not too high, just right in line with the whole pose. And then one hand at a time, plank pose, downward facing dog. Bend the knees, look forward, step, walk, bring the feet up between the hands, forward fold, top of the mat. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, full. We're coming into chair pose. Put the weight into the heels of the feet. Reach the arms up. Utkatasana. All the way up to standing. Hands come together right down in front of the heart. Inhale, sit back, chair pose. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fingertips to the mat. Step the left foot back behind you. Come into warrior two. Spin that left heel down flat. You'll need to hop it in a little bit. Heel to heel or heel to arch. Left arm brings you up. Virabhadrasana 2. So just stepping into it a little differently. See if that changes the pose at all. Get even in the legs. So you're digging down through the front heel and the outer edge of that back foot. Find your focus, that drishti straight in front of you. See if you can get the neck longer because the shoulders are going down. Lifting the lower belly and lengthening the tail. So you don't want to feel like your rear end is sticking out behind you. And then maybe you sink in a little bit more. If there's a deeper lunge and a pressing back of that left thigh, try that. Straighten the front leg, flip that front palm up, reverse triangle. Come up to standing, hands to the hips, turn those right toes in, heels in, toes out a little bit, right arm on top of left, find your eagle arms first, lifting, keeping the chest lifted, start to bend the knees, wide-legged squat. So we don't want the hips to go lower than the knees. They can always be way higher. You're trying to find a place where you can still sustain your Ujjayi breath and the pose. And keep it strong and graceful. So you're building strength here. Face should be focused. Forehead should have plenty of space and between the eyebrows. Straighten the legs, hands to the hips. Point the toes straight forward so the heels are behind the balls of the feet, and then fold forward halfway, hands down in front of the shoulders. This time you can grab the outer legs or ankles, whatever's right there. Some of you might want to grab the big toes with the peace fingers and the thumb. If you do that, you can come up halfway, flare out the elbows, and then fold all the way down. So Prasarita Padottanasana D. Shoulders move away from the ears and more toward the hips. And if you have that yogi toe lock, big toes pressing down to the fingers are gripping the toes, almost like you're trying to lift them. Then lift the head up halfway, fingertips down in front of the shoulders. Turn the toes to the top of the mat, feet hip width distance apart, left hand down, right arm up for that twist. Keep that left thigh lifted, stretching the left heel back, left shoulder away from the left ear. Right hand comes down to the mat, step back, downward facing dog, feet hip width distance apart, inhale forward to plank pose. One forearm at a time, forearm plank. Get long. Sphinx pose, set the hips down, tops of the feet down, reach the heart forward, tailbone back. Feel that core hugging in. Then look down at the mat, tuck the toes, fire up the legs and the core, lift the hips back to forearm plank. One hand at a time, plank pose, downward facing dog. Bend the knees, look forward, step, walk, bring the feet up between the hands. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. Bend the knees, chair pose, Utkatasana. All the way up to standing, hands come together, down in front of the heart. Inhale, sit back, Utkatasana chair pose. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fingertips to the mat, right foot steps back, warrior two. Spin that right heel down flat. Bring yourself up, spread the arms out wide. So first couple breaths, that's where your fine tuning comes in. Find all those little adjustments in your body that you know you need to make so you can truly find the pose right where all the work's supposed to be, everything working together. Then you find your focal point, your drishti, and you stay with it. So there's still a meditation that's happening in this pose, even though the breath is the only thing that's moving. See if that meditation can help you find some length up through the crown of the head, shoulders a little lower away from the ears. Hug those arms in toward the center of the body. Top of the right thigh presses way back, so you straighten that back leg. Left inner thigh reaches forward. Straighten the front leg, flip that front palm up, reverse triangle. Hands to the hips, turn the left toes to face the side of the mat. Fold forward halfway, hands come down in front of the shoulders, wide-legged forward fold. Let the head and the neck go. Maybe you grab the outer legs, ankles, or grip the big toes with the peace fingers and the thumb. Prasarita Padottanasana D. Get the weight even in the heels of the feet and the balls of the feet. So most of us, that means shifting the hips forward, hugging the belly in, shoulders away from the ears. Come back up to center, walk the fingertips in front of the shoulders to lift the chest, and then turn the toes to the top of the mat, feet hip width distance apart, right hand down, left arm up. Keep the right thigh lifted, just find that Lengthen the spine as you twist. Left hand comes down to the mat, step back, downward facing dog. On an inhale, glide forward to plank pose, hold plank pose. One forearm at a time, forearm plank. Lower all the way down to the mat, tops of the feet to the mat, reach the heart forward. Then tuck the toes underneath you, lift back up to forearm plank, one hand at a time, plank pose, then downward facing dog. Bend the knees, look forward, step, walk, hop, feet up between the hands, forward fold at the top of the mat, inhale up halfway, exhale, fold, chair pose, Utkatasana on the inhale, rise all the way up to standing, hands come together, down in front of the heart. So we'll go through that a little bit faster. We took some long holds there and we might add in a couple of poses and then that's it. Bend the knees, sit back, chair pose. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fingertips to the mat. Step the left foot back behind you, warrior two. Spin that left heel down flat, windmill the arms up. Flip the front palm up, straighten the front leg, reach up and back, reverse triangle. Come up to standing triangle. You can shorten the stance if you want to. Just try to get as long as you can in the right side waist. Pulling that right hip back. Come back up to standing. Hands to the hips, turn those right toes in, heels in, toes out a little bit, arms reach forward, right arm on top of the left, eagle arms, bend the knees, wide-legged squat. So heads right over the hips, inner thighs lengthening away from you, knees and toes right in line with one another. Find your focus. Straighten the legs, hands to the hips, toes point forward, fold forward halfway, hands down in front of the shoulders, and then fold down over the legs. Find the arm variation that's working for you today. Lift the head up, fingertips underneath the shoulders to lift the chest up halfway. Turn the toes to the top of the mat. Left hand down, right arm up. Find that twist. Right hand comes down to the mat, step back, downward facing dog. On an inhale, glide forward to plank pose, one forearm at a time, forearm plank. Stay here, or you could play with those mountain climbers, lifting the right toes up away from the mat, right knee, right tricep, just one each side. Step the right toes back, lift the left toes, left knee, left tricep, back to center, Sphinx pose. That'll feel really nice. Tops of the feet down, reach the heart forward, press into the tops of the feet, keep the back of the neck long. Then tuck the toes, fire up the core and the legs, lift the hips up, forearm plank, one hand at a time, plank pose, down dog. Bend the knees, look forward, walk, step, hop, feet up between the hands. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. Bend the knees, chair pose. All the way up to standing, hands come together, down in front of the heart. So that's it. Bend the knees, sit back, chair pose, just the other side. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fingertips to the mat. Let's step the right foot back behind you. Warrior two, spin the right heel down flat, windmill the arms up. Flip the front palm up, straighten the front leg, reach up and back, reverse triangle. Come up to standing triangle. From triangle, squeeze those legs together. Come back up to standing, arms wide, hands to the hips. Turn those toes to face the side of the mat. Heels in, toes out. Reach the arms forward. Left arm on top of right arm. Eagle arms. Bend the knees. Lengthen the thighs, lifting the chest. Straighten the legs, bring the hands to the hips, point the toes straight forward so the heels of the feet are behind the balls of the feet. Fold down halfway, then bring the hands down to the mat. Wide-legged forward fold, let the head come all the way down. Shift the weight evenly between the heels of the feet and the balls of the feet. Then grab the outer legs, ankles, or big toe. Bring the fingertips underneath the shoulders, lifting the chest up halfway. Turn the toes to the top of the mat. Widen the feet hip width. Right hand down, left arm up. Find a twist. Left hand down, step back, downward facing dog. Inhale forward to plank pose, one forearm at a time, forearm plank. Get long in your forearm plank, either hold here or hover the right toes, right knee, right tricep, step it back. Maybe you hover the left toes, left knee, left tricep, step it back. Sphinx pose, hips come down, tops of the feet come down, reach the chest forward. Look down, tuck the toes, fire up the legs in the core, lift the hips up, one hand at a time, plank pose, down dog. Child's pose. Knees down to the mat, big toes together, sit the hips back. If you're comfortable keeping the arms forward, keep them forward. Can always take a break and bring the arms back if you need one. Or if you're doing some other version of child's pose, that's fine too. Come back to downward facing dog. Look forward, shift the hips forward, tuck the toes, lift the hips. Inhale forward to plank pose. One forearm at a time, forearm plank. This time, dolphin. Lift the hips up high. Chest is going to go back and then start to walk the feet in, continuing to lift the hips and pushing the shoulders way back. As soon as you can't bring the feet any closer, that's your pose. So you're trying to get more of the weight into the legs. Chest is pretty open and the forearms are very familiar with the mat. And this is our final back bend. So we won't be doing rounds of this. See if you can stay here and breathe, making some space across the back of the chest, center of the back. Then walk the feet back, forearm plank. Get long. Set the hips down to the mat, tops of the feet down to the mat. Make a pillow with the hands. Rest. So you can just set the forehead down. You can turn the head to one side, whichever one feels better. And then lift the head, bring that left knee out to the side. So inner edge of the foot is down on the ground, and then just rest the head back down. So it's like a half frog pose. And then cactus the arms, bringing the elbows out wide. So elbows in line with the shoulders. If the neck's okay with it, turn the head to the right and rest the left side of the head down onto the mat. If it's not, you can always bring the right side. And then start to lift the head back up to center, stretch that left leg back behind you, bring the right knee out to the right, inner edge of the right foot down. Maybe the right side of the head comes down to the mat. So you're turning the nose away from that bent leg. You can always bring the left side of the face down to the mat if the neck doesn't want to do that. Start to lift the head, bring that right leg back behind you. Bring the hands in, almost like you're going to do cobra pose. Come up onto hands and knees, and then turn to face the side of the mat. Doesn't matter which side, probably whichever one you can see the screen. And then you could bring the outer edges of the mat in like a third of the way. So each end of the mat comes in about a third of the way. And then from here, hands are definitely off the mat. Knees are on this padded part of the mat. And then turn the toes out so the inner edge of the feet are down on the ground. And we're coming into frog pose as our hip opening. So you want to open up the knees. And everyone's going to be different here. So you're just trying to find a nice hip opening in your body. Maybe you stay up on the hands. Maybe you come down onto the forearms if that feels okay. And then here, the hips want to move a whole lot. They want to go way far back, or they want to come way far forward to make it a little easier. So I like to go too far forward, too far back, and then see if I can find center, which means hips in line with the knees. Doesn't have to be perfect if it's already a tough pose for you. And then maybe the knees go a little bit wider if you're not feeling anything. But this is frog pose. Breathe into it. It can be pretty intense for some of us. Some people love this pose and can go all the way down and it just feels natural. If that's you, great, stay there. If it's not, don't worry about it. And that's what's fun about yoga and exploring all these shapes and poses. There's always going to be some that are more challenging for us and some we just feel so comfortable in. And you want to get a good mix of all of those in your practice, which is why it's nice to take a variety of teachers too, because we all have our favorites of what we like to teach. This, for the record, is my least favorite pose. Maybe you're feeling a little bit more length in the inner thighs and a little bit more ease. And start to make your way back up. So if you're on the forearms, you'll start to come back up onto the hands, but the knees need to come in sort of at the same time. So use the toes to bring yourself back to tabletop. Unfold the mat in both directions, and then you'll just come to seated facing forward on the mat. And as you come to seated, hug that right foot in, bending the right leg, sitting up as tall as you can. Wrap the left arm around that bent knee. Right hand comes back behind you. Sit up as tall as you can. Left toes point up, and then you gaze over that right shoulder. Just a seated twist, but you want to stay even on the sit bone. So notice if you got heavy on the left side and got light on the right side. Start to bring the gaze forward, unwind the chest, extend that right leg forward, bring the left foot in, bending the knee. You might need to bring that foot back a little bit more. Left fingertips back behind you, sitting up tall first before you twist, then wrap the right arm around this bent leg. Continue to sit up tall as you twist. Right toes point straight up. So you keep that right leg strong as you're in the twist. So this is an active twist, an active stretch and pose. Bring the gaze back forward, slowly unwind, extend the left leg out in front of you, toes up, reach the arms all the way up, fold over the legs. Paschimottanasana, seated forward fold. Keep reaching the chest forward, but you can let the head and the neck go. And start to come back up to seated in either Shavasana or seated meditation. Grab whichever one sounds like a better choice. Get yourself set up. Use props if you have them, or if you have something to cover the eyes, if you're coming into Shavasana, that's always really nice. We'll all close our eyes. Take one more breath together, deeply in through the nose. Sigh it out the mouth. Let that go. Letting go of the movement, coming into stillness, and allowing the body to breathe on its own again. Rest here. Staying right where you are, find the breath. If you're on your back in Shavasana, find small movements in the hands and the feet. Maybe take a stretch on your mat, reaching the arms back behind you, pushing the legs out in front of you, getting long. And start to walk the feet in, bending the legs if you're on your back, rolling over onto your right side, cradle the head and the arm. If you're in your seated meditation, just stay right in the zone. If you're on your side, use that left hand to bring you up to an easy cross-legged seat or your meditation seat. Prop yourself up if you want to. Sit up tall, eyes closed. So you're lengthening the front side of the body when you're in your seated meditation. Pubic bones going down toward the mat. Chest is lifted up, shoulders away from the ears. Tip of the nose points forward and down a little bit. And we rise up through the crown of the head. So you feel that connection, one with everything around you. Bring the hands together right in front of you. Keep that lift of the chest as you slowly start to bow the head, taking a moment to yourself to honor and acknowledge your heart and spirit, as well as everyone around you. Bring the head back up, blink open the eyes. Namaste.